All right, this is the Nissan Altima. This is the 3.5. This is the V6. So we're going to be replacing an alternator on this. I've been meaning to do this video for a while. This is the one. I'm just going to take off this cover and I'm going to get it out of the way. This is the one that you have to take out the radiator out to get to the alternator. This job should cost you in the vicinity of 140 to 160, depending on where you go. If you spend more than that, you're overpaying. So we're going to do this one today. The alternator is down in there, so like I said, the radiator is going to have to come out. I'm going to start by removing the upper radiator hose. Just going to get some pliers, and I'm just going to move that clamp back, and I'll just wiggle it. You're going to lose a little antifreeze. Try to catch it with a drain plug like I didn't. Sorry about that. I got to get this one done. I got a lot to do. You know, try to be as earth friendly as you can. What I'm doing now is I'm unplugging the fan from the electrical harness, the cooling fan. So I'm going to do that next. I got both of them unplugged, and you got some little clips, little plastic ties that are holding this the harness to the fan assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and snip those off. Pull that one off, and pull this one off. If I can. It's not that difficult. I just can't get a good bite on this one. There it is. So you can get the harness out of the way, okay? So I'm just going to put it to the side. Next I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take off these bolts here that hold the radiator. It's the radiator bracket. It's two 10mm bolts. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and use air, y'all. You guys can use regular tools, it's fine. I'm going to use air because I have more than one job to do today, as usual. Hose going to your coolant reservoir, that little white tank. I'm going to go ahead and remove that hose. All right, I'm going to stow that out of the way. Now the radiator, you see, is moving around. I do have to remove the lower radiator hose, and I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead down there and remove the lower radiator hose. All you have to do is jack up the vehicle, crawl underneath there, take the clamp off, and pull the hose off. Get a drain pan so you can get the rest of the antifreeze out. All right, I already took off the lower radiator hose. So I think I'm ready to get this radiator out, and it only took me like a whole 5 minutes. So far, right? So I'm gonna try to pull this radiator out of here, and bam, there's the radiator, y'all, in a whole 5 minutes. Again, this is like 140. It's 144 with me to do this job, labor alone. So bam, 5 minutes, the radiator's out. Now we can put our hands on the alternator. So I'm going to go ahead and get this power lead that's coming from the battery. I'm going to go ahead and take that off after I take off this negative battery terminal at the battery. Take that clamp off, and then I'll remove that 12-volt lead going from the battery to the alternator. Got to be removed. So let me do that now. I should have some tools handy, and I do. All right, I disconnect the battery because you know what? I don't like seeing sparks. So, and it's safer. You're not going to break nothing, tear up, blow up a computer, you know, fry something. So it's a good idea to do that way. All right, loosen up that nut. And you probably want to see that, huh? All right, I'll show you. All right, that nut right there, you take off the little cover. There's the alternator right there. You take off this cover and bam, look, there's a nut down there. So I'll take that nut off. It's a 13 millimeter. And all right, I'm gonna get a new nut with my new alternator, but I'm gonna keep this, put that in my spare bolt bin. So I have all these special nuts. Now behind that one, there's the regulator, the alternator's voltage regulator, which is that plug. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there. All right, you're gonna go ahead and unplug that. You're just gonna push in. You're gonna push in on here and just pop it off. So let me do that. Let me set my camera back down and do that for you. I'll do that for me, huh? I'm going to use a screwdriver and push in on that tab. Man, that thing's on there pretty good. Okay, there it is. Well, I'm trying to get it off. It's almost off, but the engine is holding it back, so I'm just going to leave it unplugged, semi-unplugged, and I'm going to go ahead and start removing the alternator. Okay, now there's a 12 millimeter bolt, if I remember right. Yes. All right, sorry about that. There's a 12 millimeter bolt. Okay, here's the alternator. If you look down up underneath here, there's the alternator right there. Alternator right here. Right there, there's a 12 millimeter bolt. And go ahead and loosen that bolt up. Okay? Go ahead and get my camera right again. All right, now with a ratchet, I have one of those swivel extensions on it. Let's see if I can just set this down for a second. I have one of those swivel extensions, and this is a 12 millimeter. It'd be nice to have a short little socket, but I lost it the other day in someone's vehicle, and I could not find it, so I left it. I hate leaving tools, but it was down there in the fender somewhere, and you know, I didn't want to take off a bunch of stuff just to get a $5 socket. So let me go ahead and break that loose. My God, that was tight. That was ridiculously tight. All right. All right, just about out of there. All right, and there it goes, and it's out. It's not. All right, so all we got to do now is remove the tire. Get your lug nuts in the same spot, organized, and now you can access this cover right here. So we're going to go ahead and get a, it looks like a Phillips head screwdriver. Looks like someone did some different stuff. So I'll take out these screws and I'll remove that cover so I can gain access to the tensioner pulley. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to look up here and we're going to see the tensioner pulley. That's where the wrench is on. And we're going to go ahead and loosen up that center bolt, because that center bolt is what keeps that pulley from riding up and down. It keeps it fixed in one spot. So we're going to loosen it up. All right. These wrenches are really cool to have. They're a time saver. All right, so if you follow the instructions exactly what I did, there should be no problem getting off the belt. Once you remember that step where I took the harness off the alternator, I just pulled that alternator forward after I took off that 12mm bolt, and that's why the belt is loose now. So I can just take that nut off right there, and I can go ahead and pop the belt off. So now the belt is off, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and take it off the entire system, and there's the belt. All right, so you see now this pulley can move up and down because I loosened up this nut, okay? And there's an adjuster on the top of the motor, and I'll show you that a little bit later on. And that's what actually, you can adjust this pulley, you know, tighten or loosen the belt using that adjuster on top of the vehicle. It's a 14mm nut up there, but I'll show you that later when we reinstall. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to completely take off that pulley. So I'm going to do that now. Go ahead and take off that nut. Don't lose anything. Here's the nut. And I'm going to take off the entire unit. There's a washer back here, so be careful. Take off the nut, keep everything in place. Keep everything in place and just lay it down, okay? And then you're going to take off this piece. All right, and go ahead and stick this piece on top of it because that's where it goes. And this washer I was talking about, it's a thick washer, and I'm going to put that underneath that and put that right there. So that's how it goes on. If you don't get this on right, you're going to have problems. So there you go. A washer, that other sleeve, the pulley, this sleeve, and we'll top it off with the nut. All right, so now we're good. So now this is the most important part, and you can't F this up, okay? This nut on your alternator, this is your alternator, the lower securing bolt nut is right here. You have to use, I'll show you what you have to use. You have to use a socket that looks like that. All right, it has to be a 6-point socket. You can count the points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? All right, it has to be a 6-point because that nut is really, really, really tight. And you don't want to strip that nut off, otherwise you just caught hell. I'm just saying, you're going to catch hell if you strip that nut off. Strip that nut by using the wrong socket. So always use a 6-point 14mm up there. And I'm going to get me a big ratchet, and I'm going to go ahead and break that loose real quick. What I'm going to use a breaker bar, a long breaker bar. And I'm going to break this thing loose. Ah, got it. Okay, now she's loose. So now I can get a regular socket up there and go ahead and take that bolt off. Remove that long bolt. You got to push it in, and you're going to pull it out the other side. All right, you're going to have to crawl underneath the car for this step. So I'm going to take that nut off. I'm going to push that bolt in, and I'm going to pull it out of the other side. That's where we're at. All right, now once you got that nut off there, if you look back behind the alternator, there's the alternator right there. If you look behind there, back there, you'll see the nut I'm talking about. And it's right there. Alternator replacements. They have this little shim inside here, and this thing slides back and forth like that. And when you tighten up this bolt, this pushes in and it pushes that out, and it squeezes up against the frame where it, the bracket where it connects to. You see that gap? So that thing pushes up against that as you tighten up the bolt, and it squeezes up against it and keeps it tight. So before you install a new alternator, always check the position of this sleeve right here. And in most cases, you gotta you got to tap it with a hammer and a punch. Be careful not to hit it too hard because you will break this part. Just kind of tap it in a little bit, put some lubricant around it, tap it in, and make sure it's flush. Here's the old one that came out. You see it pushed out. It pushed in and pushed out. All right, so that's just with almost a lot of these alternators are built with that design in it. So something to be aware of. So let's go ahead and get this done. We've been on this job approximately maybe 35 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this done as quickly as possible and correctly, of course. So let me get it done. Reversed order. I'm gonna drop this in first, and I'm gonna put that pin in the very first thing I do. Sometimes I even put the top bolt in there first so I can get it to hang, which I'll probably do it that way first because that's easier. Install the top bolt in there and then swing this thing through. Once you get that top bolt on there, like I said, you'll be able to swivel it like that, and then you can line up that bottom bolt and go ahead and put it in there. I use a magnet and I connect it to that bolt down there, way down there, that big long bolt, and I use a magnet or a screwdriver or whatever I can so I can guide it in because my hands are not that small. So you're gonna have to, if you got small hands you can get in there, but I just can't. So I have to use a magnet to do that. On this top bolt, how I put this on there, because it's challenging, because you got to hold the alternator up and you got to put that bolt in there and then line it up and then get your ratchet. So what I do, I go ahead and stick the bolt in the hole, and you'll see it protrude out of this side, and you get your socket and your wrench on the nut, your ratchet, your little ratchet, and you'll use your hand and you'll lift up that alternator and get it in position and use the other hand to start, to start the nut on the alternator. Make sure you don't cross thread that nut. It has to be on there straight. Take your time. It only took me like a couple minutes, if that, to do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on that lower bolt and get that in there. All right, and to make it a little easier, I went ahead and got a bolt out of my toolbox. I don't know what it goes to, but it's a bolt. And if you look up here, you can see the alternator swivel, right? If you look up in there, you can see the hole. Well, maybe you can't see the hole like that. But I'm gonna go ahead and line up the hole. And I'm gonna do that by just sticking this bolt in the hole. So let me do that. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and stick that bolt in there right now. And when I put this bolt in the back side of that alternator, it'll push that bolt right out. So, it's already aligned. So, all right, somehow I managed to squeeze my hand in there a little bit. So now I got my long magnet, and I'm going to try to get it on the end of that. All right, guys, we're about to the end of this job. We already got our stuff set up. So, and I got that bolt in there, no problem. There it is. Okay. Let me go ahead and flip the camera the other way for a second. All right, all we got to do now is put our pulley back on there, right? Tighten up our bolt, put our nut back on here. And let me go ahead and get that started. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the bolt on that first, okay? All right, we got that bolt, the alternator lower bolt. We already got it installed. Sometimes you got to hold it from the inside and push it in before you're able to tighten up that bolt. You just got to keep it up against the alternator. All right, so anyways, we got that tight. So next thing is this pulley. You're going to put your finger on the stud and you're going to pull it out towards the tire. All right, and you're going to spin it and you're going to make sure it's set and pulled all the way in the out position. Since you already got if you followed instruction, you should already have your pulley and how it goes
on there. So I'm going to flip it. Actually, I'm not going to flip it. Just going to keep it like that. But I'm going to take my bottom piece, which is my washer, and I'm going to go ahead and slide it on there. And again, I'm going to take the bolt and I'm going to pull it out. All right. I'm going to get the bottom washer. All right. And with the lip out, I'm going to put it on there. You see the lip out. I'm going to put it on there like so. And I'm going to get my pulley, okay? And I'm going to put my pulley on there now without pushing that bolt in there all the way, hopefully. And it didn't quite work out that way because I have the camera in my hand. So let me pull the bolt out again. And very slowly put the pulley on there without pushing that bolt back in the hole. All right, and if you do it that way, you'll have some threads so you can start your bolt. I'm going to get this nut over here, and now you can start the nut. Try not to do a lot of pushing on that bolt still, okay? All right. Kind of pull out on that nut at the same time and screw it in. Kind of pull on the pulley, start screwing it in again. That way you know it's seated right. If this pulley looks all crooked when you tighten that bolt up, you didn't do it right. All right, so now I got it fairly tight. I'm gonna have to tighten that up later because you see it slides up and down now like it's supposed to. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the belt on there and then we'll go adjust it from the top and I'll show you how. Let me go ahead and install that belt. All right, before you're able to install the belt, if you look down up in here, close to the motor mount, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a bolt down there. And it's right here. You'll see it. You might not be able to see it on the camera, but there's a nut right there. And you'll have to loosen up that nut. And what that'll do, that'll drop that pulley down. So that'll drop that pulley down so you can get the belt on there. Okay? Very important. You will not be able to get that belt on without loosening this up first. So let me loosen it up a little bit. That may not be enough, but let me check it. Okay, so let me grab this belt. Alright. Go ahead and line it up. Get it on there. Get it on the alternator. Matter of fact, I'm just going to keep you there for a second. I'm going to go ahead and get it around all the pulleys except for the idler pulley. And I'm going to try to do it that way. And yes. So I'll put it on the idler pulley last. All right. All right. So now the belt is back on there. I'll put it on this pulley last. It just makes it easier to reinstall. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up the belt. I come back up top. I'll change my settings and I'll tighten it up like 10 times. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'll go down and check my tension, and I like the tension, so I'm gonna